to one and all. With immense pleasure and honor, I welcome the dignitaries, participants, and students to the national webinar on effective use of digital technologies in education, organized by the Citizen Consumer Club of Ethiraj College for Women, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. The Citizen Consumer Club was inaugurated on 2nd December 2008 with the vision to impart knowledge on consumer rights and responsibilities, encourage students to stand up against malpractices, and inculcate leadership qualities in students through the activities of the club. The initiative to conduct this national webinar is to inculcate the awareness among students that application of digital technologies in education, if used effectively, would enhance the learning experience. Let us begin our today's program by invoking the blessing of the divine grace. I request Ms. Shreya Narayan to render the invocation song.
शरणु सिद्धि विनायका शरणु वेद्य प्रदायका शरणु सिद्धि विनायका शरणु वेद्य प्रदायका शरणु पार्वती तनय मूर्ति शरणु मूषिक वाहना शरणु सिद्धि विनायका नितिल नेत्रने देवी सुतने नागभूषण प्रियने तटिल तांगित कोमलांगने कर्णकुंतल धारणे शरणु सिद्धि विनायका.
Thank you, Shreya. Now, I request Ms. R. Rupala, President, Citizen Consumer Club, to give the welcome address.
Good morning and welcome to the National Webinar on Effective Use of Digital Technologies in Education. To quote the words of Albert Einstein, education is not learning of facts, but training of the mind to think. Digital technologies in education have expanded the horizons of learning and have explored the students to various dimensions which inculcates deep understanding in learners. The webinar topic is an initiative to deliberate on how students can engage and focus on a holistic approach towards sustainable knowledge development. It is with great regards and joy I welcome our resource person, Mr. Gurumurthy Kasinathan, founder and director of IT for Change, Bangalore, Karnataka. Sir has 31 years of rich experience in the development and corporate sectors. He leads the organization's work in research, demonstration projects, and policy advocacy in the area of education, and also works on systematic teacher education reform. His areas of expertise include open educational resources, ICT integration in education, and school leadership. He has designed and conducted an evaluation of ICT programs in school and teacher education and implemented statewide teacher education programs. Adopting a professional learning community approach, Sir has served with Azim Premji Foundation, where he was deputed to work in the policy planning unit of the Karnataka Education Department and had been a visiting faculty at the Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai and Hyderabad for the education leadership and management and ICT and education courses. Sir has been a part of many committees such as the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, MHRD on ICT and Education, Governing Board Member, Regional Institute of Education, Bhopal, Member for Evaluating E-Content for the Government of Gujarat. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. We welcome you, sir. On behalf of Citizen Consumer Club of Ethiraj College for Women, I warmly and respectfully welcome Thiru R. Nehemiah, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Civil Supplies and Consumer Protection, Government of Tamil Nadu, and Dr. J. Vijay Talakam, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Civil Supplies and Consumer Protection, Government of Tamil Nadu. We extend a warm welcome to our beloved Principal, Dr. S. Kodai, and our Vice Principal, Dr. D.B. Usharani, aided, and Dr. T. Ushapriya, self-supporting, for their support and motivation in all our endeavors. My heartily welcome to all the faculty members, participants, and students, friends, to the national webinar on effective use of digital technologies in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupala, for those warm words of welcome. Now, I deem it an honor to request our resource person, Mr. Gurumurthy Kasinathan, sir, to deliver the webinar address.
Thank you everybody for the wonderful invocation song, very beautifully sung, and for the warm words of welcome. I'll be speaking to you on digital technologies in education, but I will also look at it broadly in terms of the role that digital technologies play in society. I'm happy to be here with all of you, and I thank the Citizen Consumer Club of Ethiraj College for inviting me to speak to all of you. I would like to share my screen now so that I'll be having some slides that I would like to show all of you as I'm talking. This happens. My system is hanging. I think I just need to restart my system. I'll be back in a minute. Sorry, there was a small technical glitch. My system was hanging, so I had to restart my system. I've shared my slides. I don't know, is that visible? Doesn't seem to be visible. Can you all see the slides that I've shared? Yeah, thank you. I think I can see the slides again now. So once again, thanks to Ethiraj College for this opportunity to talk to young people in Chennai and across the country. We are living in very interesting times. We are in the grip of a pandemic, and that pandemic has completely changed our lives, and I'm sure it's affected all of you in Ethiraj College as well, because I think regular college sessions would not have started, and some online teaching may be happening now. So today I'm going to talk about how digital technologies can be used effectively in education, and I will talk from the experience that my organization IT for Change, which is an NGO based in Bangalore, we've had in using digital technologies in education for the last decade or so. Before I go ahead, just want to confirm, is the pace of my speech okay? Am I talking too fast? Is my voice clear? Just want to confirm that before I proceed. Can somebody confirm to me? Yeah, thank you, Shruti, for confirming on the chat. If something that I'm saying is not clear, or if I'm talking too fast, please alert me on the chat so that I get updated. Yeah, thank you. So when I saw the invite from the Citizen Consumer Club, the title of the club sort of intrigued me, Citizen and Consumer. So normally the citizen and consumer words they're very powerful words, and the minute we talk about citizen or consumer, the next word that comes to our mind is rights and responsibilities. So consumers have rights, consumers have responsibilities, citizens have rights, citizens have responsibilities. And I think in the beginning, when I think Archana introduced the session today, she spoke about rights and responsibilities. But these two terms have a lot of commonality and distinction between the two. And I'm going to ask these questions of you now. At the end of the presentation, we will discuss them. But the question to all of you is, what is a consumer right? What is the basis of consumer rights? And the question for you is, are consumer rights variable? When I say variable, I mean, do all people have the same consumer rights across time, across space, and across time, or do consumer rights vary from situation to situation? So, are consumer rights uniform across the entire country of India, or are they variable? So, that's a question for you. And likewise, when we talk about citizenship rights, the question that I want you to think of is, what is the basis of citizenship rights? I've mentioned in my slide that consumer rights have an economic connotation, they have an economic foundation. Citizenship has a political connotation. So there is an economic connotation of rights, which is what consumer rights are all about. There's a political connotation, right, which is what we get into when we talk about citizenship rights. So the question to you is, are citizenship rights variable? Do they depend on the situation? Do they change from person to person in the country or in the world? So is there a distinction between consumer rights and citizenship rights? So this is a question that I want all of you to think about, and we will revisit this at the end of the presentation. Then after talking about citizenship and consumer rights, the question comes of knowledge. Do we have a right to knowledge? Does each of you who is a student of a very eminent college in Chennai, do you think you have a right to knowledge? That right to knowledge, if you think you have a right to knowledge, is that a consumer right or is it a citizenship right? So that's a point that I want you to think about. And likewise, when you talk about digital technologies, when we look at digital technologies, do we have consumer rights vis-a-vis digital technologies? Or do we have citizenship rights vis-a-vis digital technologies? Do we have both? Do we have neither? So before I go ahead, I just want to hear a couple of students. Anybody who wants to unmute and share, or you want to type on the chat window? We'll just spend 5 minutes on this and then we'll go ahead. But I wanted to get a feel of what you all feel. Are consumer rights variable? Do they depend on the situation? Do they depend on the person? Are citizenship rights variable? Do they depend on the person and the situation? Do they change from place to place? And knowledge and digital technologies. Do we have a right to them? And if you have a right to them, is it a consumer right or is it a citizenship right? Yeah. Can anybody unmute? And I don't know what the arrangement here is. I hope some of you can participate in the conversation and can respond to what I'm asking. And if you are unable to talk, then you can type in the chat window. Yes, can anybody respond to my questions? Is it possible for anybody to respond to my questions? It needn't be a final answer. It may be a thought, work in progress in your mind. So can anybody respond to the questions that I've asked in this slide? Citizenship is based on birth of a person in our country. So Ritika has mentioned that. So then the question I have for you, Ritika, is a citizenship right of any person born in India? So you said citizenship right is arising from birth in the country. So does every human being born in India have the same citizenship right, or does it vary from person to person? That's the question. The question really is, are citizenship rights variable or are they not variable? And similarly, what about consumer rights? Are they variable or are they not variable? Come on, anybody can reply. If people reply, then I'll get a sense of where we are and how we can engage in this discussion. So can more people respond on the chat, or if it's possible to unmute and speak, please do that. Vijay madam, is it possible for students to unmute and speak at this point in time? Is it possible? Vijay Lakshmi madam, Hema madam, can students unmute and talk? Is it possible? Oh, they can't talk now. Okay, can they type in the chat window? Is that possible, or that's also not possible? Can students type? Yes, they can comment. So nobody is commenting. So can somebody comment on, I think one of the students said that citizenship arises from birth in the country. So my question is, Kirtana says citizenship is variable from person to person. So that means that ex-human being, Lakshana says it's not variable. Citizenship rights cannot be variable by and large. There may be some special provisions that are made for women. There may be special provisions made for people from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. There may be special provisions made for religious minorities, but by and large, citizenship is not variable. You cannot say that because I am from Maharashtra, I'll have some right over India which somebody from Manipur cannot have. I cannot say I'm a man, so I'll have more rights than a woman. I am a upper caste Brahmin, so I'll have more rights than a Dalit. I am a Hindu, so I'll have more rights than a Muslim. Citizenship rights are not variable. Every citizen of India, so you all would have become familiar with the Constitution of India, the preamble to the Constitution, which says that we have right to equality, we have right to freedom, we have right to justice, we have right to education. We have so many rights, and these rights are available to every citizen of the country. So citizenship is not a variable right. What about consumer rights? Anybody wants to say anything about consumer rights? We'll go ahead. I don't want to spend too much time, but I was hopeful that some of the students might respond. Citizenship rights are slightly variable because people not born in India also get citizenship. But after they get citizenship, do they have any lesser rights, or they have the same rights? So if they're not citizens, of course, you cannot compare a citizen's rights with a non-citizen's rights. So let's say a Rohingya Muslim has come from Burma into India and is not a citizen of India. That Rohingya immigrant may not have the same rights that I have. But if the Rohingya Muslim gets citizenship in India, after they get citizenship, the rights are no more variable, because we do not distinguish between somebody born as a citizen and somebody acquiring citizenship. The Indian Constitution and Indian law legal framework do not distinguish between the two at all. Consumer rights, anybody wants to say anything about consumer rights? Are they variable? Consumer rights are variable, yes, Neha. So thank you so much. We will revisit this little later, but I just wanted to start off talking about these two rights because they will give a background to what I want to talk about. So we cannot understand digital technology in a vacuum. Digital technology is a resource for society, and digital technologies are primarily concerned with the production of knowledge and with the consumption of knowledge. So digital technologies are called ICT. The more popular term for digital technology is ICT, and ICT means information and communication technology. And information and communication is essentially for creating knowledge and for sharing knowledge. So I am making a statement, and I welcome people to disagree with me. I welcome agreement. I welcome disagreement. I welcome debate. So I am making a statement that knowledge is meant for all. Knowledge is meant for sharing. We all have a right to knowledge. So that's the position I'm stating. I'm giving the example of Isaac Newton. So Newton, we all know. Many of you will be studying science-related courses, and even otherwise, even if you are studying any other course also, in your school you would have learned about the Newton's laws of motion. When Newton found the laws of motion, when Newton discovered the laws of motion, or when Newton propounded the laws of motion, this knowledge that he created, he gave it to the entire humanity. He did not say it belongs to me, I will use it for my benefit only. So knowledge is something that is generally it is intended for the use of all, for sharing by everybody. And so many scientific discoveries that have been made in the world, scientific discoveries, scientific inventions have been shared by everybody. For example, the polio vaccine was invented by Dr. Salk. And he said, I want it to belong to everybody. I don't want it to belong to me. I want the knowledge of the polio vaccine to belong to everybody. So, I I'm making a statement that knowledge is meant for sharing, knowledge belongs to all, and an important parameter of knowledge is it is non-rivalrous. Does anybody know what does non-rivalrous mean? Can you all type quickly and respond in the chat window, because then I'll feel happier if I get responses. Otherwise, I'm talking and I'm not getting any response. Then I will not know whether you are listening to me or not. So I request students to type on the chat window and respond. So the question: does anybody know what non-rivalrous means? If you don't know, also you can type no. That's also fine. I'll just give it half a minute and then I will continue. Anybody knows what is the meaning of non-rivalrous? I'm saying knowledge is meant for sharing. Knowledge belongs to all. Knowledge is non-rivalrous. Anybody knows what that means? Okay. Non-rivalrous means that if I have it, it does not prevent other people from having it. So George Bernard Shaw gave this very famous example. He narrated this, story where he says, if I have an apple and you have an apple, I give you my apple, you give me your apple. Then we began by having one apple each, and after we gave each other the apple that we have, we still continue to have one apple each. But if I have one idea and you have another idea, you give me your idea, I give you my idea. At the end of it, now each of us has two ideas. So idea, which is something in our mind, is similar to knowledge. So all the knowledge that we have today, I can acquire that knowledge. But when I acquire that knowledge, it does not in any way prevent you from having that knowledge either. In fact, our education system completely depends on the fact that when the teachers are sharing their knowledge with the students, the teacher's knowledge doesn't go down. It's not that the teacher is giving away the knowledge, which is the case for physical products. So the teacher has a pen and the teacher gives a pen to a student, the teacher will no longer have the pen. But if teacher is sharing knowledge, the knowledge doesn't reduce. In fact, we always say when we share knowledge, the knowledge doubles, because all the people concerned have their own version of the knowledge that they have. Okay, so I'm asking you a question now, and I hope more of you answer. Is there a right to knowledge? And I'm giving a specific example of the knowledge of the COVID vaccine. Now we know that many companies are creating a COVID vaccine, and that is knowledge essentially. The physical material is not so important, because once a vaccine is discovered, once a vaccine is invented, then anybody can manufacture it. It can be manufactured by X company, Y company, government of India. Anybody can manufacture the vaccine. So the important thing is the knowledge of how to make the vaccine. So my question to you, this knowledge of how to make the vaccine, should it belong to Pfizer company? Should it belong to AstraZeneca company? Should it belong to US government? Should it belong to Indian government? Should it belong to everybody? So do we have a right to knowledge? Should knowledge belong to everybody? That's the question. Can anybody quickly reply? What are your views? Shruti is saying yes. Can other people also reply? I hope everybody can chat. I hope many people are on this call. So you can reply to my question. This knowledge of the COVID vaccine, does this knowledge belong to a company? Does it belong to a government? Does it belong to one community? Or does it belong to everybody? That's a quick question. Can somebody type on the chat? Okay, so I've got two responses and both have said it belongs to everybody. So I think as students, we will have a strong position on the matter. For students, it's very clear that knowledge has to belong to all. If knowledge cannot belong to all, it means that some students can have the knowledge, some teachers can have the knowledge, some communities can have the knowledge, but everybody cannot have it. And as students, for you, that will be a completely untenable and unethical position that knowledge will belong to some. But today, actually, I want to point out to all of you, while you may be clear that knowledge belongs to all, today, as we are discussing how will we vaccinate people against COVID, while some people are saying knowledge belongs to all, the COVID vaccine should be made available to all, the government of India, for example, the government of India and the government of South Africa have gone to the WTO, which is the World Trade Organization, and told the World Trade Organization that we should not allow patenting of the COVID vaccine. So this is something that Indian government and South African government, we are the poorer countries in the world, India and South Africa, developing countries. We have gone to the World Trade Organization, WTO, and made an appeal that COVID vaccine should not be patented. But the companies that are making the COVID vaccine and many people in the developed countries and some of the developed country governments are saying that no, we cannot give the COVID vaccine knowledge to everybody. It has to be patented. And Pfizer will have a patent for creating COVID vaccine. So long as Pfizer company owns the COVID vaccine patent, that knowledge cannot be used by other people to produce a vaccine. I could get that knowledge from Pfizer by stealing it or by bribing somebody, but the law will not allow me to manufacture COVID vaccine. So Pfizer vaccine may be available in the US, but it will not be available in India. So I want to point out to all of you that while as students, you might have the belief that knowledge should be available to all. You might have the belief that COVID vaccine knowledge should not be deprived from anybody. Today, there is a big struggle happening in the world where some people are claiming that COVID vaccine should be made available to everybody. The knowledge of manufacturing the COVID vaccine should be available to all. But the rich countries, the companies in the rich countries which are going to make the COVID vaccine, they are taking a position that no, we will patent the COVID vaccine, we will produce it, we will sell it on the price that we want to sell it in. And this is the current debate happening in the world. We must be aware of that. So while we may have a particular belief, that is not acting out in the world as we would like it to. Is there a right to education? That's a rhetorical question because all of you are already aware that India has passed a right to education. In the year 2010, India passed an act in parliament which said that every child between 6 and 14 years of age, which would be between classes 1 to 8, has a right to free and compulsory education. So the act is called Right to Free and Compulsory Education. So education should be free, meaning nobody should be deprived of education because they do not have the resources to go to a school. Education should be compulsory. You do not have a choice to remain uneducated. You have to go to school or you have to be homeschooled. You cannot tell that, no, I don't want education for my children, I won't put them in school, I'll keep them at home. That right is not available to a citizen. So India has a right to education which is understood as something which has to be made available free of cost and compulsorily to all the children between 6 and 14 years of age. Now the right to knowledge, the right to education, the right to know what the COVID vaccine is, are these political rights or are these economic rights? Do we get these rights because we are citizens of the country, citizens of the world, or do we get these rights because we are consumers? Can anybody type? Can you type in the chat window again? I'm sorry, I would like this to be interactive. I know that maybe it's intended as a talk again, but you can type on the chat window and respond. Is a right to knowledge, is a right to COVID vaccine, is it a political right which comes from citizenship or is it an economic right? If the right to vaccination is an economic right, what does that mean? It means people who have the resources can buy it. People who do not have the resources cannot buy it. Is that what you mean? The minute we say something is an economic right, we are saying we have a right as a consumer. That automatically means that if you go to a restaurant and you want coffee, you don't have 10 rupees in your pocket. Are you a consumer? You are not a consumer. If you go to a restaurant, you want to have coffee in the restaurant, but you have no money in your pocket. The restaurant will simply tell you, we cannot serve you coffee because unless you are able to pay the 10 rupees to us, we will not give you coffee. So, the right to vaccine, many people are saying this is economic rights. I hope you understand what that means. But the minute you say it's an economic right, it means you can have the right only if you have money to pay for it. So are we saying that COVID vaccine should be given only to people who can afford to pay for it? Let's say the cost of the vaccine is 1,000 rupees. Does it mean that all the people who are poor cannot get the vaccine because they cannot pay for it? Can you reply? All the people who said it's an economic right, I have the further question for you. The minute something is an economic right, it means our right to it as a consumer. So unless we have the money to pay for it, so if you don't have the money, let's say a COVID vaccine is going to cost 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees or whatever it is, but I don't have that money. Does it mean I don't have a right to get the vaccine? So does it mean poor people in India should not get the vaccine, do not have a right to get the vaccine? Can anybody reply? Do poor people have a right to the vaccine? Or only people with facilities and resources should have a right to the vaccine? Because the minute you say economic right, that's what it means. Economic rights means I have the resources to acquire. I am a consumer. So consumer means who has the resource to buy something. Otherwise, you are not a consumer. If I don't have money in my pocket and I go to a restaurant, I can't be a consumer in the restaurant because I cannot afford to pay for the idli or coffee that I want to have. So we have to be very clear. The right to knowledge or the right to a COVID vaccine cannot be an economic right, cannot be a consumer right. It has to be a citizenship right. Citizenship right means if I am an Indian citizen, it is my right to get a vaccine against COVID. Whether or not I have the money to pay for it, whether or not I am a Hindu or a Muslim, whether or not I am a male or a female, Dalit or a Brahmin, whatever, whether I stay in Tamil Nadu or whether I stay in Jammu and Kashmir, doesn't matter. I have a right to the vaccine because it's my right as a citizen. So whoever said it's economic right, I want you to really think about it. Why would you call it an economic right? Because the minute you call something an economic right, poor people will be out of the market. Poor people cannot afford it. So therefore, you are condemning poor people to death or poor people to suffering because they do not have the resources to buy it. That is the meaning of an economic right. Whereas citizenship right is a political right which says everybody, like right to equality in India or right to liberty in India is a right everybody has. Nobody can be denied that right. So political rights are universal. Consumer rights are contingent on having the resources to pay for the product or service that is being provided. So that is an important thing to understand. I think many people are now agreeing with me that right to knowledge has to be a political right. Right to education is a political right. It is not an economic right. It's primarily a political right because every human being who is between 6 and 14 has to have education. It is not dependent on whether I have money to pay fees or not. It is not dependent on my father's or my mother's social economic situation. It is not based on where I stay. It is not based on what language I speak. But everybody in India can get right to education. So these are political rights. So it's very important as college students, you must be very clear what is a citizenship right, what is a consumer right, what is the difference between a citizenship right and a consumer right, and why citizenship rights are extremely important. So let's come to digital technologies now. Digital technologies, again, digital technologies are very, very crucial for the knowledge explosion that we have today. You might have heard of the term knowledge society, you might have heard of the term information society. So we know that today's society, there is an explosion of knowledge, there is an explosion of information, and the primary reason for that is digital technologies. So again, the question is, do we have a right to digital technologies? Can everybody enjoy digital technologies, or it should be available only to some? Now, another thing to remember is just like knowledge, knowledge is non-rivalrous. Non-rivalrous means whether I have it, even then you can also have it. Because a teacher is having knowledge doesn't mean the student cannot get the knowledge. Student can also get the knowledge, teacher can also have the knowledge. So the argument for sharing something which is non-rivalrous is very strong. If something is not non-rivalrous, if something is rivalrous, like an apple, we cannot say everybody should get an apple because there may not be enough apples for everybody. But knowledge is non-rivalrous. Non-rivalrous means everybody can get access to it, and X person accessing it does not prevent other people from accessing it. So knowledge is non-rivalrous. Now digital artifacts like software and content. So you have got software and you have got content. Both software and content are non-rivalrous. Non-rivalrous means I have a copy of a software. I give you a copy of the software. Now it does not mean I lose my copy. Similarly, on my phone I have got a song. I give up that song to you. I transfer it to you from my phone to your phone. Although I have given you a copy of the song, copy of the digital content, I continue to have the digital content. So digital content and digital software are both non-rivalrous, meaning one person having it does not prevent other people from enjoying it as well. So question to you is, do we have a right to digital technologies? Do you think such a right should exist in today's society? Tamilarasu is saying yes. Anybody else wants to share any opinion? All of you feel free to type on the chat so that we can just get responses. Thank you, Roshan, for responding. So, yeah, so digital technologies, the belief whether everybody should have it or not cannot be just that I want everybody to have it, so everybody should have it. It cannot be as simple as that. The question to ask ourselves is, in today's world, without digital technology, human beings find it very difficult to live in the same way as those who have digital technology. So digital technologies have made a very big difference to the way we live our lives, right? Everybody will agree with me. If supposing your phone is taken away from you, you may get very upset if your phone is taken away from you. So you may say, I can do without coffee, I can do without even water for some time, but I cannot do without my cell phone for even 20 minutes or 30 minutes, because that cell phone is so important for your day-to-day activities. That cell phone is so important for your, everyday actions. Now, if it is so important for you, and we agree digital technology is important for education, digital technology is important for e-commerce, digital technology is important for agriculture, digital technology is important for industry. If digital technology has become so important to every aspect of our life and every aspect of our being, then digital technology should also be something that is available to all. So if digital technology has to be made available to all, we need to think of digital technology as something that we have a political entitlement to. Okay? But there is a very unfortunate thing that has happened in the world today, which is that originally when digital technologies began, so one of the earliest powerful digital technologies we are all familiar with is the internet. Now, does the internet belong to everybody or does the internet belong to some people? Can anybody reply? If you look at the internet, we all know what the internet is. It's a network of computers. The World Wide Web, WWW, is a part of the internet. Do you think internet is something it belongs to everybody or it belongs to some people, some organizations? Internet belongs to everybody, says Mohammed Ilyas. Anybody else wants to share? Anybody from the college? Ethiraj College students, I'm eagerly waiting for your responses. Maybe you're responding on the YouTube, I'm not sure, but I'm not getting the chat. I don't know how to get the chat. I'm only getting private chat from some students, but I'm not getting the public chat. I'm not able to see the public chat. Maybe I should look at it in YouTube. Let me just do that. Give me a second. I'll just see it in. I want to see if students are responding on the chat. Yeah. Yes, now I can see that there are some responses on the chat as well. Yeah, so we can say that if digital technologies, Lavanya says that it should be available only for those who are capable of paying. So let's say today information and communication is largely driven by digital technologies. So let's say farmer, I am a farmer, and farm prices are available on, let's say, WhatsApp, or farm prices are available on the internet. Now, if I cannot afford digital technologies, I will not have access to the prices of outputs of agriculture for my crops. I may not have access to prices of inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, etc. So I will be discriminated against compared to a person who is having the digital technology. Similarly, students. If you look at students, some students are having access to a phone, some students are having access to a computer, and they're able to benefit from online education. Some students may not have the digital technology, they may not have a phone, they may not have a computer, and therefore they may not be able to access digital technology. Recently, you might be familiar with a girl from Hyderabad who committed suicide. She was a student in a college in Delhi. I'm not remembering the name of the college. She was a student in a Delhi college, and she committed suicide because the college was conducting online education, but she didn't have a computer and her phone was not good enough for her to connect to the education. Do you think she should have the provision to digital technology? Because then only there is a fair and a level playing ground between that poor student from Telangana and from students who may be in Ethiraj College, who may be well resourced and therefore able to afford digital technologies. So digital technologies, I'm not saying everything about digital technologies belongs to all. I'm not telling that If Apple has come out with a phone that costs 1 lakh rupees, everybody should say, I also need that Apple phone, give it to me free. I'm not arguing in that way, but I'm saying that basic access to internet has to be seen as something that everybody is entitled to. But if I cannot access the internet without having a device, then we have to figure out how we are going to allow access to devices for everybody. It need not be providing one device to every person. For example, the Kerala government, when they had the lockdown, the Kerala government has decided that they are going to provide community infrastructure where laptops or cell phones may be available to students at community points like a panchayat office or like a Kudumbashri office. So they are making provision for what they call as community digital infrastructure. So community infrastructure can be a way of making digital technology available to everybody. But yeah, so some people do not have the facility. We have to see how to make that facility available to everybody. You will agree that as students, you're all students. If let's say in a class of 40 students, 35 of you have devices and 5 of you do not have devices, then it would be greatly unfair that you're doing online teaching in Ethiraj College. 35 students can connect to the online teaching and 5 cannot connect. So would you all agree with me that that would be discriminatory and unfair against the 5 students who are not able to access the knowledge and the information? So then Ethiraj College or Tamil Nadu government or some bodies or institutions in Chennai or Tamil Nadu have to think, how can we make digital technology accessible to the 5 students? Need not only be by giving them devices, but that also can be a solution. How can we make it a right to everybody? Because if right to education is a fundamental right, and today online education is the standard way of delivering education, unless I have a right to digital technology, the right to education does not mean much. I have a right to education, but I don't have technology with me. I cannot attend education. So this is actually happening. See, what I'm talking about is not theory. Just like I told you, COVID vaccine, there is a huge battle in today's world. It's a very big issue. Some governments like India and South Africa are arguing that COVID vaccine should be the property of all humanity. Nobody should monopolize, nobody should patent COVID vaccine according to Indian government and South African government. And they appealed at the World Trade Organization. However, at the same time, companies that are manufacturing these vaccines, they are saying they are going to patent the vaccine. The minute they patent the vaccine, it's not going to be available to everybody. Similarly, in the case of digital technology, in today's situation, if you see India, the middle class families in cities and different parts of the country, they are having their children attend online classes in school. So even in Chennai, I'm sure you will agree with me that even in Chennai, there will be the Padma Seshadris, there will be the DYP schools, there will be the Delhi public schools in Chennai, where the students who are studying at least in class 8, class 7, class 10, already they are continuing their studies through online education. Then there are students in the corporation schools, there are students in the government schools, they may not be having the same facility. So today in front of your eyes, you can see that in the absence of digital technology, the right to education is not meaningful for the poor people, whereas it is meaningful for the rich people. So today in India, what we are telling is if you are rich or if you are from the middle class, you can continue to get education for your children. But if you are not rich, you cannot afford to have digital devices. If your school is not having the resources to conduct online education, you will be out of school. For the last 8 months in our country, I would say that 80% of children who go to government schools, 80% of the children who go to government aided schools have not benefited from online education. Maybe 50% of children who go to elite private schools, they get the benefit of that. To my mind, it is wrong. To my mind, it is very, very unethical. It is very, I would say it's criminal on the part of all of us, on the part of society that although we have a right to education, today we are saying rich people can access education, but poor cannot access education. And that's a violation of the fundamental right of every child in India to receive education. Now to come back to digital technologies, all of you agree that if today we have if we have right to education as a fundamental right, and digital technology is essential for the right to education because today online education is the primary way of teaching, then right to internet, right to digital technology must also be seen as a fundamental right or a right everybody must have. If you don't believe that, what we are saying is rich people can take care of themselves, poor people can suffer. That's what we are really saying. And whether that's an ethical position to take, you need to really worry about. Okay. Now, digital technologies are of two kinds. I'm not talking about hardware now. Hardware is a more complicated issue because you cannot, it's like Apple. You cannot have Apple fruit and Apple phone. You cannot give it to everybody because it's a physical thing. But what about software? What about content? Because software and content are non-rivalrous, it means that we can share it easily with everybody without depriving the person who has it initially. It is important that software should be available freely to all. Unfortunately, the digital technologies, what we see, most of them are what we call as proprietary. Proprietary means that only the person who made that software or only the person who made the content, they have the right over the software or content. You do not have any right. You are only a user. So, for example, you are using Gmail. Tomorrow, if Google says that today Google is giving you Gmail free of cost, but tomorrow Google will decide that I don't want to give you Gmail, they can close your account tomorrow itself. You do not have any right vis-a-vis Gmail that Google has provided you. Similarly, today you may be using Google Maps, you may not be paying money for it. Tomorrow Google may say that everybody who connects to Google Maps has to pay 1,000 rupees a month for accessing Google Maps. They may tell everybody to pay or they may tell some people to pay, depends on what they want. You do not have any right to decide what Google will decide for you. Similarly, Microsoft, when it sells you Microsoft Office, although you have paid money for Microsoft Office, you do not become the owner of that software. You are simply a user of Microsoft Office. It's very important to understand. You might have paid money when you bought the computer, and you might have paid money for Microsoft Windows, you might have paid money for Microsoft Office. However, you must understand that even though you have paid money, that money that you have paid is only for the license to use it. It's not for actually owning that particular software. Now, which means that although you bought that software and you have a DVD in your hand, or you have, that data with you, which is that software, if somebody asks you, you cannot give it to them. You cannot copy it, you cannot modify it, and you cannot give it to others. Now, the alternative to proprietary software is called free and open source software, and I want to bring that in the area of education. Now, just like knowledge is non-rivalrous and therefore can be shared, and education is premised on the belief that knowledge should be shared with everybody, in the same way, digital technologies, which are software and content, if they are non-rivalrous, they can be shared with everybody. This is a belief of many people who are promoting free and open source software in education. So free and open source software is the software which is owned by all of us. It is not owned by X company or Y company. Proprietary software, because it is owned by X company or Y company, you can be prevented from doing what you want to do with it. You are prevented from giving it to others. You are prevented from making copies of it. But free and open source software is not like that. So my suggestion to all of you is to think that in the sphere of education, in the sphere of knowledge creation and knowledge use, we must be promoting software, we must be promoting content that belongs to everybody and which can be freely shared. Okay, I'm going to my next slide, but if there are any questions or comments, feel free to type in the chat window. I'll be happy to take questions. I'm also looking at the YouTube chat, so you can type in the YouTube chat also. I can respond to your questions that you type on the YouTube chat. I'm also seeing questions that are raised in the chat inside this particular application platform. So the thought that software should be available to everybody, that software should be possible to share with others, was started by a person called Stallman. So you can see his photo on the slide. He's a professor from MIT. He's no longer a professor, but he was working as a professor in MIT. And at that time, software was being created. I'm talking about the 80s, early 1980s. Many of you, or I think most of you, would not have been born at that time. Who are students in Ethiraj College obviously may not have been born at that time. Early 80s, that Stallman, who was then a professor in MIT, he said, if software is going to be made the property of people who created it, proprietary means Microsoft owns Microsoft Office, Microsoft owns Microsoft Windows, Adobe owns their software, Amazon owns their software. If that is the case, everybody will not be able to access it because they can prevent people from freely giving it to others. But software is non-rivalrous. If software is non-rivalrous, it means everybody can theoretically get a copy to it. So Stallman started the free software movement. So free software, the word free is important to understand. Free does not mean free of cost. That is the consumer or the economic meaning of free. Muft, or which doesn't have money to be paid. But free has a political meaning. The political meaning of the word free is I am free to do what I want to do. So if you look at 1947, slides are not clear. Okay, maybe the slides are small. Can you stop showing my image? Maybe that will make the slide bigger. Can I request the organizers to, not show me so that the slide may look bigger and therefore the points may be visible? Because somebody said they're unable to see the points on the slide, and I'm also not able to see the points on the slide that I have. But what I can do is I can make the slides bigger. Just give me a minute. Is it bigger now? Is it better now? I'm not sure. Yeah, I think, now hopefully it is more visible. Maybe the color of the fonts is a problem, but I think we are able to see the full slide now. So therefore that's a good thing. Hopefully you're able to see it. So Richard Stallman started the free software movement in 1981. And he said that we will make software, but we will make software and make it in a manner that everybody can have 4 rights. What are those 4 rights? The first right is freedom to study or right to study. So everybody who wants to study a free software can download the software, can open the source code and can study the software. So that's very important because, for example, in today's world, we know that digital companies steal our data. So you all must become aware as students that whatever data you are having in your phone, you may think it is confidential data, but anybody can access the data on your phone. You may have some photographs of somebody, you may have some private chat with your friends. You may think that other people will not have access to it, but that's not true because the proprietary software that you installed in your cell phone can collect the data that you have. It may be SMS data, it may be WhatsApp data, and it can be sent to other companies. So we are all vulnerable to data being stolen from us. Therefore, and we don't know whether the software is stealing our data or not. For example, you are using Gmail. You cannot study Gmail. So you do not know whether Google is stealing your data or not. We know Google is stealing our data, but we have no way to prove it because we cannot study the software. Same thing for Facebook, same thing for Apple, same thing for Twitter. They may be stealing our data, but we will not know that they're stealing our data because the software that they use is not available for public scrutiny or public study. Whereas free and open source software can be seen by anybody. You can download it, you can open it, and you can see it. So the first freedom with free and open source software is you are free to study it. Now all of us may not study, all of us may not have the ability to study because we may not have the technical competence. But so long as it is free to study, we know that anybody who has a technical competence can go and study it and therefore assure all of us that that particular software is not stealing your data. So in today's world where theft of data has become a very grave crisis, where theft of data is something that is going to make all of us vulnerable, particularly students, it's very important that we do not use proprietary platform. For example, we use Zoom, we use Google Meet, we use Gmail, we use Facebook. All these applications are going to be stealing our data and it can put us in severe trouble at some point in time in our lives. In fact, you know that recently Government of India has been banning Chinese apps. And the reason government is giving for banning Chinese apps is these apps are stealing data of the users. Now the question for the Indian government is It may be very true that the Chinese apps are stealing the data and should be banned, but what about the American apps? The American apps, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Google or Apple or Amazon, all of them are also stealing our data. So government of India seems to be saying, if the Chinese if China is stealing your data, that is wrong. But if America is stealing your data, that is right. To my mind, that is not correct. Whether a thief is a Chinese or a thief is an American, a thief is a thief, and we cannot have favorable situation for some thieves, which is what the government is actually doing today. But if it's free and open source software, that kind of theft of data is not possible because the software is available to study by anybody. Free software is also free to copy, so you can make copies of it. So for example, instead of using, if you're using Zoom, you cannot make your local copy of Zoom because Zoom is proprietary. But at IT for Change, we don't use Zoom. We use a webinar platform called Big Blue Button. That Big Blue Button is a free and open source software, free and open webinar platform. So we've installed that Big Blue Button on our own Office server. So we can use it in any way we want to use it. So Big Blue Button is a free and open source webinar platform which we can study, which we can make copies of. We can modify it and we can distribute it also. So modifying software also is something that is possible with free and open source software. It is not possible with proprietary software. So Big Blue Button had only an English version. So IT for Change team, we made a Kannada version of it also. So that modifying the software is possible only if it is free and open source software. It is not possible if it is proprietary software. So this slide is very important because it says that as students, as teachers in education institutions, if we use proprietary software, we are going to have challenges because that software may steal our data. That software does not give us any right or any freedom other than the right to use it on the terms set by the producer. But free and open source software gives us 4 freedoms. Freedom to study the software, freedom to copy the software, freedom to modify the software, and freedom to distribute the software after modification. So the free software community in India has created a lot of software applications for use of everybody. Yeah, so there is a question from Tarish Jain. I'll answer it later on. He's asking a specific question about Zoom, which I will answer later on. But this is an important point that there is a community of people called the free software community. They are creating the same software that we are using. So if I go to the next slide, we can see the, which are these options that are available to us. 1 second. Yeah, the slide is not moving, so I need to just, I think, start sharing again. 1 second, just let me start sharing again the screen. For some reason, the slide was not moving, so let me try again. Yeah, now I've shared my screen. Can the screen come on, please? I've shared the Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so now we have the slide in front of you. So what I'm talking about is not theoretical because the free and open source software company in India, the free and open source software community all over the world has created many applications which schools and colleges can use. So for example, at IT for Change, we don't use Windows. We use Linux operating system. Linux operating system is just like Windows operating system, except Windows is proprietary, Linux is free and open. So we can study the Linux software, we can modify the Linux software, we can make copies of the Linux software without asking anybody. So if you've got 50 people working in IT for Change, we don't need to buy 50 copies of Linux. We can just download Linux and install it on all the computers. Just like your Microsoft Office, there's something called LibreOffice. You may be using Chrome web browser. Now Chrome web browser is proprietary. So Chrome may be stealing your data, which you are not aware of. For example, Google steals your location data using Chrome, which you may not be aware of, you may not be knowing it, but there is a spy that you carry wherever you go, you are carrying a spy with you, and that is your phone. So if you're going to meet some friend and you don't want anybody to know, your Google knows that you're going to meet wherever you're going because Google tracks your location and Google tracks it through the Chrome browser as well. So instead of Chrome browser, we use Firefox browser. Firefox is free and open, and therefore you can study the code and know that Firefox will not be collecting data from you. The Google search engine is very popular across the world. It's a very good search engine, but it's proprietary. So it captures your search information. It knows each of you what your search preferences are. But we use DuckDuckGo search engine, which is free and open. So like that, there are several hundreds of free and open applications which we can start using in our schools and colleges. So I'm sure Etiraj has got many ICT labs or many computer labs, and maybe today most of those computer labs may be running Windows or maybe having Adobe or maybe having other proprietary applications. We have done work with a lot of institutions, both colleges, schools, education systems across the country, and we have encouraged them to shift from proprietary to free and open platforms. For example, the Tamil Nadu government also, from what little I know, the schools all run different versions of Linux platform in Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu, I think, uses SUSE Linux platform. In Karnataka and Kerala, we use the Ubuntu platform, which is also a Linux platform. So school systems in many parts of India have already shifted from Windows, which is proprietary, to Linux, which is free and open. And this is something that can be done with colleges as well. So the last line of the slide also says, for example, that instead of using Zoom or Google Meet, which is taking your data away, you can use free and open platform like Jitsi or Big Blue Button, where since you can study the software, you know that it will not be in a position to steal your data from you. So Jayavarshini wants to know, is there any possibility to stop them from stealing our data? Now, because you don't know what the software contains, there is no way of stopping them. Because if you ask Google, Google will tell, no, we don't steal your data. Now, there is no way for you to prove or disprove what Google is saying. You understand? So, Google may claim they are not stealing your data. It was found that Google, on your Android phone, if you switch the location off, so you know that there is a location option in your phone, and sometimes the location you will keep it on for using some applications, and for sometimes you may not be using the location option on your phone. But even if you put the location off on your phone, Google will still capture your location. Your cell phone company is still capturing your location. Cell phone company, of course, has to capture your location because it is providing you connectivity. But Google has no business to capture your location. But Google captures your location. Google captures your data. So that being the case, we can never be sure that our data is not being stolen from us. The only way we can be sure is by stopping using of proprietary platforms. So many people in India, many people in the world very strongly believe that proprietary applications should not be used at all because they threaten our privacy, they threaten our safety and security. In addition, they are also expensive because every individual has to make a separate purchase of that license, whereas if it is free and open, you can simply make copies of that software and give it to everybody. Okay. If there are any questions, feel free to type in the chat window. Yeah. So now we come back. We are talking about knowledge. We're talking about technology. We're talking about role of digital technologies in education. So we were talking about digital technologies and free and open technologies until now. Now, if you look at education, the role of the teacher is sharing. So absolutely, if you see the image on the screen, two mice, they are sharing a piece of cheese. And similarly, teachers, the primary role of teachers is to share knowledge, to share information with students. And teachers believe that knowledge should be something that everybody must have. Knowledge is something that everybody should share with one another. In the same way, if we believe that digital technology is essential for education, essential for learning, we should also promote digital technologies, which is free and open source software in education. So schools have to spread knowledge. Knowledge requires software and digital content. If schools have to share knowledge and share digital content and digital software, then the digital software has to be free and open source software. So that is very important. The good news is, in 2002, Kerala started that process of using only free and open source software. Kerala was a pioneer in India. Now many governments of India are promoting FOSS. FOSS means free and open source software. The NCERT, which is the national curriculum body of India, in 2012 it came out with a policy which said schools should use free and open source software. Unfortunately, that policy doesn't apply to colleges, but there is no reason why Etiraj College and other colleges in Chennai and other colleges in Tamil Nadu and the rest of the country also should not start promoting free and open source software. For example, one of the participants in this call is Dr. Uma Maheshwari. She's from Sri Sarvagna College, which is a teacher education college in Bangalore. Her college, we helped that college to move to Ubuntu and free and open technologies. And therefore, it is something that every institution in India can plan and implement. The benefit, of course, is that everybody will get benefit of it. Now, an important aspect of using free and open source software is to use it to create open digital content. So that's the next slide. Just like there is free and open source software, we can think of software as the means, as the mechanism of producing knowledge. The knowledge that we produce is in the form of content. Now, digital content also can be proprietary. Digital content can be free and open. So that's something we must understand very clearly. If we go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia has a free and open content because anybody can access Wikipedia, anybody can download from Wikipedia, anybody can modify Wikipedia also. So Wikipedia is what is called the open educational resource. So you can see the term there, OER. So Wikipedia is what is an example of open education resource. Now, how is OER to be produced? OER will be produced using software. So one of the things that IT for Change promotes in India in education is that all teachers and students must become familiar with the free and open source technologies, and using these free and open source technologies, we all should contribute to the creation of open educational content. So, for example, Wikipedia is a repository of knowledge. Now, the English repository of Wikipedia has got 60 lakh pages, but the Tamil content on Wikipedia is just around a lakh or so. So Tamil is lagging behind as far as Wikipedia is concerned. But Tamil students in Tamil Nadu, teachers in Tamil Nadu who are familiar with English, who are familiar with Tamil, can start going to Wikipedia and add content in Wikipedia connected to areas of their interest. So open content is something that teachers and students can come together and collaborate and create and make it available to everybody. Until Wikipedia became popular, for a long time, we had Encyclopedia Britannica. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of the older people would have certainly heard about it. Encyclopedia Britannica was a proprietary encyclopedia. So they will not allow you to make a copy of it. They will not allow you to give it to others. But when Wikipedia became popular, everybody can use it, everybody can modify it, everybody can download from it. Then Encyclopedia Britannica shut down their shop. So open content becomes extremely important for teachers and students to create and use. Okay. Now, just like free and open source software has 4 rights, similarly for digital content also there are 4 freedoms, which you can see as the 4 R's. The 4 R's are reuse of content. So if it's an open content, it can be reused, it can be revised, it can be remixed. Remixed means you can put 2-3 OERs together and make a new OER. You can take a video, you can dub it in your own voice and create a new OER. So if there's a video about learning some particular software, or there's a video lecture that is being given. For example, the lecture that I'm giving now, it is OER. So any of you can translate it into Tamil. The voice can be dubbed in Tamil, the slides can be changed to Tamil, and you can release it. So that is remixing. And after remixing and revising, you can redistribute it with others. So the 4 rights that open content gives us are right to reuse, right to revise, right to remix, and right to redistribute. So these are the 4 rights that are available with open content as well. Okay, I'll just take a 1-minute break now to ask you if there are any questions or comments. I've been going pretty rapidly in the last 20 minutes, so I'm not sure if everybody is being with me. I can see some points in the chat in the YouTube, but if there are any questions or comments, can you type? If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type in the chat and I can respond to it. Yeah. One of the students has said that Google claims that they use user data only to make their products better. But that is not true. Google is lying to us. Google tells lies to us that they don't use the data for their commercial purposes. But it has been proven, there are several cases against Google If you go to the internet and you use Google search itself to find out, you will find that many countries of the world, like European Union, American government, Indian government, they have put criminal cases against Google because Google is misusing the data it is collecting from you for making profit. So Google is misusing data collected from you to make its own financial position, make increase its own profits, and it is doing it in ways which you are not aware of. So already there are many cases against Google. So it is not true. We cannot believe Google when it says that we don't use data for any purpose other than to improve the quality of the product. That is not true. Yeah, any other questions? So that was Shweta. Shweta, I hope that clarification is clear to you that Google is lying when it is telling that it's using data only to make the user interface better. Zoom app updated. Yeah, Zoom is proprietary. So we cannot believe Zoom also. Zoom may be collecting our data and selling it to others or misusing it for its own use. There is no way we can be sure that Zoom is not misusing our data. I hope that answers Tarish Jain's point. Zoom will be or Zoom can be misusing our data. There is no way we can be sure that Zoom is not doing it. Why is Zoom free? How is Zoom giving its services free for you? It's giving it free for you because it is monetizing the data it collects from you when you use the platform. So that's how it is giving it free for you. But the cost that you are incurring by giving of your data, that may have a bigger implication on your privacy, on your security, than the money you are saving by using a free Zoom. So Zoom is dangerous, Google Meet is dangerous, all Google products are dangerous, all proprietary products are dangerous because we can never be sure that they are not misusing our data. There is no possibility of stopping them because we don't even know that they're stealing, right? So if somebody is stealing something but they are not even, you can't even know that they've stolen it, you can't find out that they've stolen it, how can you stop it? So no platform, only free and open platforms are safe. So Jayavarshini, if it's a free and open platform, then the software is available for us to check. So for example, if you're using Firefox web browser instead of Google Chrome, Firefox web browser is publicly available, the source code. So the source code, when we study, we will immediately know whether the software is stealing information from us or not. So if it's a free and open software, then it cannot be stealing our data because that is a public software. It's publicly visible and it can be scrutinized. Similarly, Big Blue Button we have installed on our own computer and we use that as our webinar platform. We know that Big Blue Button cannot be stealing data because the source code is publicly available. Whereas a Zoom or a Google Meet, that software is not available publicly, it's a proprietary software. So the danger that it is stealing our data is very much there. Microsoft steals your data, Facebook steals your data. I don't know if you've heard of this Cambridge Analytica scandal that happened in 2016 American elections. Has anybody heard of that? Cambridge Analytica. In 2016, Facebook sold data of users. Social platforms, free and open platforms are there, Lakshana Ramakrishnan. There are free and open social platforms. They are not very popular. For example, instead of Facebook, people use a platform called Mastodon. Instead of Twitter, there are alternative microblogging platform. So there are free and open microblogging platforms, free and open social media platforms, which do not steal your data. But they are less popular compared to the proprietary platforms. So we must be very conscious because you are all young people, you are more vulnerable. You know, many of the older people, we have lived most of our life without digital platforms. So our own life, a lot of it is not publicly available, but all of you have been using digital technologies from pretty much young age, and therefore you are much more vulnerable to being, to being surveilled, to your data being collected, to your data being misused by other people for commercial purposes and political purposes. Okay, so let me go ahead. Yeah, this is what I was talking about Wikipedia. So open content is something that teachers and students should come together and use free and open technologies to create. So Wikipedia has got 54 lakh pages online, now it is 60 lakh pages, but Hindi is just around a lakh, Tamil is just around a lakh. But if teachers can use free and open technologies and create open content and put it on platforms like Wikipedia, it becomes available for everybody. So for example, in Tamil Nadu, it is important to create content in Tamil. Why is Tamil? Tamilians are very proud of their language. All of us should be proud of the language that we were born into and that we grew up with. But we can see all over the world, English is becoming more and more powerful, and our home languages, our native languages are becoming less popular. One of the reasons is that more knowledge is available in English. If you want to do a BSc, you want to do an MSc, the number of colleges that offer English medium will be more than those that offer Tamil medium. That is because knowledge in local language is very less. So if we are able to create knowledge in local languages, that will make our languages more powerful in the digital world. And FOSS and OER therefore are very important for education point of view. Okay, so now I come back to my original point about citizenship right and consumer rights. So if you look at this slide, consumer rights are variable. So consumer rights depend on your economic situation. If you are drinking tea, supposing you are drinking tea at a roadside stall and you are paying 5 rupees to the tea vendor, your right is very different from if you are sitting in Taj hotel in Chennai and you are paying 500 rupees for a coffee. So, therefore, the consumer rights are very much depend on the economic situation of the person who is a consumer. Whereas citizenship rights are independent of your socio-economic situation, they're independent of the language you speak, independent of the place of stay, independent of your age, independent of your sex, independent of your caste, creed, etc. So consumer rights are not so important as citizenship rights. So I'm again coming back to it because the name of your club is Citizen Consumer Rights. Digital technology, we must imagine it as a citizenship right, not so much as a consumer right. Although everything is available to us as products, we must imagine that every citizen should be able to access digital technologies. So that has to be a citizenship right. Every citizenship should have right to knowledge. Every citizen should have the right to the digital knowledge produced by digital technologies, and therefore open educational resource, which is digital content, and free and open source software, which is digital software, should be available to us as our political rights as a citizen, not so much as an economic right. So citizenship right is the foundation of all rights. Citizenship is a right to have rights, and therefore it is very important that we safeguard the digital rights and the digital rights in education as a part of the citizenship rights. Okay. Now people wanted to have examples of digital technologies. So let me go back, let me show some examples. These are some examples of free and open technologies. Yeah, so if you can see the examples, you can, I will share this slide with the college. So these are some of the examples of free and open technologies that we can use. There are several questions being asked. I will try to answer them quickly, but these are some important technologies that are available. For audio, for making audio materials, you can use a software called Audacity. Concept mapping is a very powerful tool. You can use software called FreeMind or FreePlane for it. For making video materials, you can use software here. And these are some subject-based software tools also that are available for teaching in different subjects. So for example, there are science students who are going to be working with maths and science. There are students who are doing the humanities, they'll be looking at history, geography, etc. For different subjects also, you can have technologies that can be used. Okay. So these are the software applications, some of the applications that we use in our own office. And I think my formal presentation, I will stop here. There are 10 minutes more, so I'll take some of the questions. Dr. Hema, is that okay? My slides, formal slides are pretty much over. And I'm sharing some URLs on the screen. So can I respond to questions of students now? Is there anything else that you have in mind, or can I get into the responding to the questions that some of the students are asking? Dr. Hema? Yeah, so shall I respond to some of the questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so one of the questions is, what are the types of technology? What's the purpose of the question? What is, I'm not understanding the question. What are the types of technology means what? Why do you want to know what are the types? One way of distinguishing, I might say, is there is proprietary technology and there is free and open technology. Proprietary technology belongs to somebody, it doesn't belong to all. free and open technology belongs to all. So I might say that's two types of technologies, but I'm not understanding the question very well because it seems like, theoretical understanding of types of technology, I'm not understanding that very well, but I might like to say that there are two kinds of technologies, proprietary versus free and open. So that's the way I would like to respond to the first question. Does technology in education bring benefit or criticism? That again, it's very difficult to give a generic answer. Certainly, technology can help education. For example, the talk that I'm giving to all of you would not be possible without digital technologies. In your own college, you might be using online platforms for conducting your classes. So obviously, digital technologies is useful. Digital technology is also harmful. We know that it can be addictive. It can, it can lead to surveillance of people. It can cause loss of privacy. It can increase inequalities in society. So, if you see the last 20 years, society has become very unequal. They say that the income and wealth inequalities that are there in the societies today, all over the world, is much more than it was 20 years back. And they say digital technology has a role to play with it, because if you see all the wealthy people today, they are the people who create digital technologies. They are the people who have access to digital technology. So richest people in the world, Bill Gates, Microsoft, the Google owners, the Apple owners, they are all the rich people. And people who are not having access to digital technologies are not doing as well as those with access to digital technologies. So there is good and bad, but it's very complex. You cannot give a single answer that it is good or bad. Advantages and disadvantages is a question of, I will connect it back to your identity as a consumer, your identity as a citizen. Is digital technology being used to make you better citizens? Then it's a good use. If digital technology is being used to make you bad citizen, or it is being used to take away your citizenship rights, then it is bad technology. So Aadhaar, is it good or bad? What will people say? On one hand, people may say that Aadhaar is used to secure your welfare rights, and therefore Aadhaar is good for citizenship. Somebody else may say Aadhaar takes away your privacy and security and can make you vulnerable, and therefore Aadhaar is bad technology. And both are from the perspective of citizenship rights. So one perspective, it supports citizenship rights by making entitlements available. Another view, it affects citizenship rights by making you vulnerable to loss of privacy. So the same Aadhaar example can be given as a plus example or as a minus example when it comes to citizenship rights. So it's difficult to give a generic answer. Yeah, any other questions that you may have? It's 12:25 now, so I'll request the organizers to suggest what we should do. If there are any questions, I can certainly keep responding. How effective is technology in schools? It's very difficult again to give a generic answer. Technology has been used well in some schools, and technology is being misused in many schools. Many times in schools, the use of digital technology is simply to play a lecture, and that can be quite boring. I don't know how many of you found my talk interesting. Some of you might have found me boring because I'm keeping on talking and you are not having an opportunity to interact with me. But some of you might find it interesting. So technology in schools also can be positive, can be negative. It depends on the way the program is designed. So it's difficult to give a generic answer. Your questions are all very difficult to give generic answers because you have to be able to break it down into what is the way we are using technology, what is the design of the technology, what is the purpose of using the technology, who's using the technology, etc. All those questions, only when you answer, you can come to a conclusion whether it's a good use of technology or not a good use of technology. But I would say that in India, Kerala is a pioneer in using digital technology very effectively in school education. That is something that I have seen for myself in my multiple visits to Kerala. In the government schools especially, they're using digital technology in a very effective way. Other states are following Kerala gradually, and other states are also doing similar things that Kerala has been doing for the last 18 years or so. Yeah, anything else to share, or should we close the session? Is anything missing from what I said? Anything else that needs to be said? But pretty much I've spoken the things that I had in mind. I'll share the slides so that the college can share it with the students who is interested. I didn't speak very much on a couple of slides, but that's okay. They were towards the end, and mentally I had decided that I would talk about them if I have time. But I've run out of time now. It's 12:26, and if the organizers want me to speak of something, or if there are any other formalities to be done, we can get into that. And if there are any questions that are there, I can answer. But right now, I'm not seeing any questions in the YouTube chat. Dr. Hima, anything else to be done? Yeah, I have shared my slide also, so maybe the slide can also come on. Can you put the slide on? Whoever is managing the technical part of the program, can you put your slide on? Then we can see the slide which has the questions I wanted all of you to answer. But otherwise, I'm done. Yes, we can proceed with the vote of thanks. I've finished with what I wanted to say, so we can go forward with the whatever you want to do in terms of closing the event. Dr. Hima, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights on the webinar topic. It was indeed an enlightening session for all the participants. And thank you once again for patiently answering all the queries of our enthusiastic participants, sir. Now, I request Ms. Lakshmi Chaudhary, Vice President of the CCC Club, to propose the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all present. It gives me a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. On behalf of the Citizen Consumer Club and Raj College for Women, I extend my sincere gratitude to Mr. Gurumurthy Kasinathan sir, the founder and director of IT for Change, Bangalore, for giving the insight on various digital technologies in education. We are greatly enlightened by your lecture, sir. Thank you very much. We are immensely grateful to the management and principal for providing us the opportunity to organize this national webinar. Our sincere thanks to vice principals, aided and self-supporting, for their motivation and encouragement. With great sense of respect and joy, I extend my thanks to our faculty coordinators, Mrs. K. Vijayalakshmi ma'am and Dr. M. Himabindu ma'am, for their unconditional support and encouragement. I extend my special thanks to the office bearers of Citizen Consumer Club, Ms. R. Rupala, the President, Ms. Srinidhi, the Secretary, Ms. Kavya Babu, the Joint Secretary, Ms. Archana Prasad, the Treasurer, Ms. Kavya, the Joint Treasurer, for their hard work and tireless efforts. I would also like to thank the technical and editorial committee members for putting in efforts and making this event a huge success. A special word of thanks to all the participants. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for expressing gratitude on behalf of the entire CCC team at the Raj College for Women. Thank you all. Now, I humbly request our audience to rise for the national anthem.